All right, folks, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered for Wednesday, December 12, 2018. Pressure building on the governor of Tennessee to grant clemency to Centoya Brown. She was 16 when she killed the man who had sexually enslaved her. She's currently serving time in prison, and she must serve 51 years in prison before being eligible for parole. People are saying it's time for her to be let go. Alabama, a stunning story. A 9-year-old African-American girl kills herself because she was being bullied for having a white friend. Bullying and suicide, folks. A major story. We'll talk with psychologist Dr. Jeff Gardier. Also, Jasmine Hetley, the woman who we saw down on the ground with police pulling her baby from her arms just because she was sitting on the floor, is out of jail. We will hear her first words when she got out. Also, Donald Trump's fixer and lawyer, Michael Cohen. Oh, you're going to have issues being in prison. Yeah, 3 years he's going to prison. And he made it pretty damn clear he paid off 2 women in the direction of Donald Trump to influence the election. Even the National Enquirer, they admitted, plus a judge agreed. Donald, you've got issues. A black man has been in prison for 39 years for a rape he did not commit. At his trial, the judge was white, the prosecutor was white, his defense attorney was white, and all the jurors were white. His lawyer is here saying, that was not a jury of his peers. Also, we got a brand new crazy white woman harassing her sister for just doing her job. Please, I don't understand. What are y'all doing? Now we have Patrol Paul. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
All right, folks, pressure is building on the governor of Tennessee, Bill Haslam, to grant clemency to Centoya Brown. Remember, she was a young girl, 16, when she killed the man who bought her as a sex slave from her pimp. She was forced into prostitution. Folks, of course, last week the Tennessee Supreme Court said she must serve at least 51 years in prison before the possibility of parole. Now, a documentary was done on her. You can see it on Netflix as well. People have been talking about her case for quite some time. Many activists, people like Rihanna and others, a group of Black Lives Matter protesters demanding clemency while the governor was speaking at an event in Nashville last night. Take a look. Now, Governor Haslam says he is considering taking a serious look at granting clemency before his term ends. He leaves office on January 19th. Now, earlier this year, in the summer, he granted clemency in a case where a woman, she actually was sentenced to 25 years in prison for killing someone. He said the stakes were different. Critics say that woman was white, this woman here is black. What's going on here? How do you explain this? Let's go to our panel right now. Dr. Julian Malvo, economist and president emerita at Bennett College. Dr. Cleo Monago, social political analyst and activist. And also Corey Whalen, writer and consultant, first time on the show. And so if you get hazed, don't worry about it. Always happens. So let's break it down this way. And so I'll start with you, Julian. 51 years. Now, this is a woman who was a girl who was forced into human sex trafficking. She ran away from home, pimp, sells her to this guy. This guy is abusing her, sex slave. She kills him. Prosecutors say, well, she was trying to rob him before she killed him. That was the reason for her being convicted of first-degree murder. But to think that a jury could not even factor in that she was forced into slavery, and that somehow is not a mitigating factor, to me is crazy.
Sex trafficking in the United States is prevalent. One of the places I just learned it was prevalent is in Northern Virginia.
Yes.
The women who are
also Maryland.
The women who are sex trafficked tend to be obviously very young, but more black and brown than anything else. They are sold, they are abused. I can't even begin to fathom what has happened to them. The fact that the prosecutor hung his case on the fact that she robbed him, well, maybe she was robbing him to buy food, because we really don't know what happens in these sex trafficking cases. But this is absurd. It is racist. It's beyond racist. It's sexist. It's disgusting. And this governor has the opportunity to weigh in on the side of justice. I don't know that he will, but I know that this is, unfortunately, all too common. And it really does speak to the disrespect and disregard of the humanity of black women and other women of color in the context of the sexual trafficking.
Corey, the state parole board, they split on this, where some said grant her clemency, others said not in this case. But still, if you're a juror, if you're on this parole board, if you're the governor, to me, at some point you have to think. I don't know somebody who's saying, sure, I want to voluntarily be a prostitute at the age of 16, and then forced into prostitution, then the pimp sells her to another guy who's an adult who is treating her as a sex slave. I don't know how you go, okay, you still got to serve your life in prison.
I mean, the whole situation is completely insane. She was a child, and she was sex trafficked. And really, I mean, can't you argue that it was a matter of self-defense? We're in a situation here where we have a young girl, she's being pimped out, and the person we're fixating on in terms of who we're prosecuting is the young girl. It seems absurd. So I think absolutely that in this case the governor should look at it and hopefully make the right decision. It's crazy that they're focusing on her robbery, so-called robbery, and not the pimp, not the guy who literally bought this woman. The whole thing is just insane.
Cleo, first of all, she was convicted 12 years ago, 2006, sentenced to life in prison. The guy who she kills, real estate agent Johnny Allen, and somebody had asked me yesterday, whether or not the guy who she killed was white or black. Actually, he was white, and of course, it's got national attention here. But again, life in prison, and you're a sex slave?
I didn't know that he was white, so he was white.
Okay,
well, I think that's significant. I think that probably is relevant to the decision that people made. And it's interesting that the term robbed is being used because she was robbed beyond compare. I mean, she was her freedom, her capacity to be a safe human being on the planet Earth was robbed. So I think it's peculiar, but now that I see that racial dynamics is starting to make more sense to me, why this makes no sense. But it's my perspective, frankly, that women or anybody is a victim of domestic violence should be able to kill their violator and go home and go to sleep. I don't think they should do any time when they're in the throes of a person who is terrorizing them and destroying the quality of their life and their safety and their freedom. So that's my perspective. Obviously, I wasn't on the juror, but it'd be interesting to find out the gender dynamics of this jury as well. But yeah, being that she killed a white man, which is, you know,
in Tennessee,
it's contraband in this country, that's likely connected to why she got sentenced.
Julian,
the piece of this role that's important is that had they upheld the life imprisonment sentence, she would have had the opportunity to appeal. Because they reduced it from life imprisonment to 51 years, she does not now have the right to appeal, so her only recourse is the governor's clemency. So that's worth noting, is that this parole board has been very Machiavellian in their attempt to ensure that she serves a significant sentence.
Corey, actually, so this is a Newsweek story. So prosecutors say Brown killed Johnny Allen, 43, in order to steal from him. She took several firearms and his pants, which contained his wallet. They also pointed to her past drug use and criminal juvenile record in an attempt to show a pattern in her life.
She was a sex slave. What do you mean a pattern in her life? Like, this man bought her. Just the way, even just hearing the way that is contextualized is just so wrong. It makes it look like she just went into this guy's house and stole from him and took his weapons, and she has a history of drug use. She also has a history of being sex trafficked. I mean, come on, just that. it's just enraging, honestly.
And so again, so Haslam, again, he leaves office on January 19th. That's when he will have to make that decision. And so the question is whether or not he will leave it up to a new governor to pick up this case. Now let's go to Alabama, where there's a tragic story. 9-year-old Mackenzie Adams, of course, committed suicide in early December. Folks, her mom and grandmother said she was bullied at school because she had a white friend and because a white family drove her to school. The family says they told the school about the bullying. The school says there's no record of that. In any event, this 9-year-old girl is dead. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said that bullying and suicide are indeed linked. Joining us right now is psychologist Dr. Jeff Gardier. Jeff, this is, I mean, just unbelievable. And one of the things I'm still trying to find out is, and the reason I'm asking this, because also what's the racial dynamic? Was she being ridiculed by black students, by white students? What's the deal here? Because what were those dynamics? But what do you say to a parent and a child comes home and is saying these things, and what do you say you do? All of a sudden, parents find her hanging in a room.
Yeah, I'm sure her parents were absolutely shocked that something like this could happen, because we hear of stories where kids are bullied all the time, but we don't make the connection or even the correlation that it could lead to suicidal behaviors. But we do know that if there is something else going on, a lack of family support, perhaps some developmental issues, perhaps some issues with depression, then that could put a child more at risk. And I talked about this morning on another network, that the important thing is that we need to pay attention to these cases and this very tragic case and come to the realization that this can happen to a very young child. And Roland, a study just released said that black children between the ages of 5 to 12 years old are actually having higher suicide rates than white children. And this is the first time in a very long time that we've seen that kind of statistic. So this is happening in our community, and we must pay attention to it, and we must address it, because it doesn't fix itself.
So here's one of the things that I've often heard, that folks my age, I turned 50 in November 14th. And I've heard folks say, look, when we went to school, we got bullied. We had kids who made fun of us. We had kids who criticized us, who attacked us for how we look and how we dressed, and you didn't have kids killing themselves. What is going on here? What is the difference? Is that we're living in now a social media driven climate? I mean, what makes this period different from previous periods where kids were bullied or were picked on at school?
We used to theorize about this, Roland, but now we know the reality. It's exactly what you said. We are living in a social media type of environment where so many of our children are online. They live online, and therefore it's easier for them to become socially isolated, to not talk to their parents as to what's going on. We tend to not even speak to our children because we don't understand what it is that they are doing, what their culture is about, the fact that they seem very grown up and that they can, in many ways, maneuver through social media. And as older persons, we're just not able to do that. But it is the fact that social media, even though it opens the world for them and they have all of these so-called friends on social media, the fact is it allows them to become very, very isolated and to become even further bullied by that social media.
So I'm reading a story. So the Tuscaloosa News talked to her aunt Mackenzie Edwina Harris, and this is what she said. She said, "Henry, go to my iPad. The fourth grade student had been bullied by other students at the U.S. Jones Elementary School in Demopolis, Alabama, for the entire school year. Quote, she was being bullied the entire school year with words such as kill yourself, you think you're white because you ride with that white boy, you ugly black bitch, just die." Then she says that Mackenzie's mother said that her daughter had notified her teachers and her assistant principal about the bullying. And then she said that the bullying began again shortly after her daughter transferred to the school, and she had reportedly also been bullied at her previous school. Now, the school is saying they have no record of that. Now, what I'm trying to also find out is, I'm trying to understand what this reporting is. If you're the parents or the aunt or whatever, what visits did they document going to the school, going to the principal? Because look, I know how I grew up. My teachers and principals knew who my parents were very well because they never left anything up to me. Though my parents were at the school, and they knew Reginald and Imelda Martin.
Right. So, Roland, I think part of what's going on is, and one of the things that we do try to work with parents are to be partners with the schools, with the teachers, with the counselors, and too often we're seeing that's not happening. The reality is, and you know this, and you've talked about this throughout your career, that there is a socioeconomic factor. Ms. Malveaux has talked about this in many ways, that it is much, much tougher for people of color out there financially, so they're working 2 and 3 jobs, and then it takes away their power or their presence to actually be in the lives of their children. So there is, something does happen. There is that collateral damage. And that's why it's so important, as you're saying, that we know who the teachers are. We know who the counselors are. I also suspect one other thing that may have been going on. Once a child becomes bullied and they become a target, now they become bullied and a target to so many other children. They now are given a role where everyone doesn't need to look at their own stuff. Everyone doesn't have to deal with their own issues of self-esteem. They can pick on that one popular target and say those horrible things that we heard were said to her. And what's really shameful is some of those things may have been said not by just white children, but also by black children. And we know we have these issues with regard to color and caste and class and self-hatred, and something that we need to work on.
Dr. Jeffrey Gardner, we certainly appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
I want to go to our panel now and to get your thoughts, and also why that is happening. Henry, I'm on the Tuscaloosa News website, so I'm going to be actually hitting the button here and showing you some other photos of Mackenzie Nicole Adams, a 9-year-old girl who actually wanted to grow up to be a scientist. Cleo, I'm going to start with you, behavioral health analyst and expert. Just your thoughts on this tragic story.
I think it's easy to talk about social media in isolation, but I think it's a huge issue missing from this analysis and perspective. This young lady was called ugly, black, blah, 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 blah. One of the things that's happened among black children, particularly once you get past the 70s and the 80s, is that we're so busy assimilating and trying to do well in this society. We're not preparing our children to live in an anti-black society or a society with anti-black messaging. So they don't know how to negotiate with it because they have not been prepared that it's a reality. So when it hits them, they're like a deer in the headlights, depending on the child, and they become very vulnerable and traumatized instead of going, wait a minute, that's not true about me. I am not black and ugly. You got a problem, not me. And a lot of young children black children are not trained to realize that this is a society that's infected by a corruption called white supremacy and racism. The lack of critical analysis makes them second guess themselves and consider the ugly consideration around what they look like because the society is anti-black. All that to say, and to be repetitive on purpose, is that parents need to prepare their child for living in a society that, whether it's media or whether it's other kids at school, that's going to put out anti-black messaging. And they need to learn to separate the toxic behavior from who they really are. And frankly, based on my own work with youth, which occurs weekly, most children are not being prepared to critically analyze and reject anti-black notions. The lack of preparation, they internalize them, and they might wind up not just killing themselves. Some people don't do that, they just take drugs.
Julian?
You know, I can't tell you how many layers of heartbreak I experienced when looking at the story. First of all, because black girls are very rarely allowed to be girls. Black girls are always assumed, as black women are, that we can take it, that whatever comes at us, we're supposed to be able to take. But this was a 9-year-old. Mm-hmm. She was a 9-year-old. And, you know, what Dr. Gardner said, we've been together on more than one occasion and often talked about how parenting, Roland, everybody was not your parents. Everybody was not my parents. I mean, so a teacher could not look sideways at me without Protea Malvo being up in the school saying, what the you know what? And she didn't say the you know what, but she like, you better leave my child alone. But our parents understood the context in which we grew up. Many of these parents who are young sometimes, Roland, they didn't have good relationships at school, so they don't know they're supposed to go in there and put their foot down and say, fool, do not let anybody mess with my child. So the burden that our society places on black women trickles down to black girls, and this was a little girl. And so I literally, when I read the story, I cried. Because I just thought about the young women that have been in my life, both as a college president and as a mentor, and the many ways that we live in an anti-black society that hits you upside the head, upside the face.
Yep.
But then, how did these other children learn a meanness that allowed them to tell a little girl to kill herself? You know, there maybe have been other things going on, but I think that the school clearly was myopic. I think that the parents were not involved early enough, and I'm not blaming them at all. But what I'm saying is that this is happening, and when we begin to unpack it in the context of a racist, sexist, capitalist patriarchy, we see how this young girl became a victim.
Corey?
Well, I mean, obviously, this is a completely tragic incident. I agree with the other panelists that I think there are special and unique challenges that black girls face, and it sounds to me too like the school was not handling it well in terms of the mother saying, hey, we reported this, and then the school saying, we didn't know about this. So it's hard to say what kind of reforms need to be put in place there, but it does seem, especially with the upticking in these types of suicidal issues and whatever cyberbullying does play into it, I think that schools do need to be more involved, and hopefully, you know, this is a wake-up call to people.
And this is the thing about that. When you think about this story and so many other stories, when you think about the interactions that go on with students every day, that teachers are not always around.
Yeah.
What happens on school buses? What happens on what happens literally in classrooms? What happens on playgrounds? What happens in lunchrooms? And we're hearing more and more of these stories, and we're hearing more and more again, of course, bullying. And I think also for a lot of us, when we think back to our childhood and how we grew up. Look, I can recall there was an incident on our school bus where these were some students. They had actually they were horsing around, and one of the students actually pulled the sweater of a girl exposing her breasts. And it was another student who was named Roland. So folks were blaming me, and I'm like, hell, y'all talking about I wasn't even involved. And so there was some students who said, oh, no, we're going to beat him and his brother up. My dad was like, okay. So my dad rolls up to the school, gets on the bus, and says, who the hell is trying to target my sons? And one of the kids tried to sit here and be bold. This was middle school. And he pulls a knife out. My dad said, really? He said, give me that damn knife. Snatched it out of his hand. And literally said, let me be clear. Anybody touch one of my sons, you're gonna have to deal with me.
That was an involved parent.
Right. But the thing, my dad had no problem, putting fear in other kids.
But that was an involved parent, and what you see so much less now, for so many reasons, are parents who are not involved.
Look, when I was at Dr. Phil's show. You remember the story of the brother in Florida, where they were pulling his daughter's hair and they were pelting her with stuff, and the dad got on the school bus and said, mess with my daughter again, I'm gonna kill one of y'all. And they targeted him, and he said, look, my daughter had been picked on, had been bullied, had been berated. He said, and I had to come to the defense of my daughter. And he was in trouble, and I was on the show with him, and I said, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm with the daddy. That man said, my job is to protect my daughter. Cleo, you want to make a point? Go ahead.
We keep referencing that the school didn't do anything. I want to go back to the fact that if black parents are actively involved in their children's lives, which apparently happened with you, and apparently happened with you, you have role modeling of how to critically evaluate the situation and know the difference between you and their madness. If the child does not know
they were involved.
If the child does not know the difference between dysfunction, madness, and corruption and who they are, they fall for the corruption. So I want to reiterate the fact that schools are supposed to be there to do what they do, but this has to start at home. Parents need to. I got to reiterate this. I'm trying to make.
Go ahead.
For example, after I do a lot of speaking engagements as well, and I remember speaking to some parents after Dylan Roof did the murder. And I asked those parents.
Emmanuel AME in Charleston. Yes.
Right. And I asked this room full of parents in, well, I forgot what city it was in. But I asked them, did you talk to your children? First of all, I said, are your children aware of the Dylan Roof massacre? And there were children in the audience, and they were shaking their head like this, and the parents saying yes. I said, did you actually take your child to the side and give them opportunity to tell you how they felt, to actually express how that impacted them, so they can actually have a way to negotiate it instead of internalizing the implication that something's wrong with being black because Dylan murdered these people? And majority of these parents, it was 300 of them, had not engaged their children about these issues. So they're walking around confused. There are children I've run into who think that to even say something is racist is racist.
You know,
so we got to give our children the capacity to critically analyze the situations, and 9 is not too young.
Got it.
I want to genderize this just a little bit, because when things happen to black boys, they act out. Their tendency is to act out, and then they're demonized for acting out. But when things happen to black girls, they internalize. It's a very different coping strategy.
But boys do too. There's been a number of boys who have committed suicide. There's been a number of boys who have killed themselves.
But by and large, when you see stress with black boys, you're more likely to see the acting out behavior, which then becomes criminalized. With black girls, what you see is the overeating. You see a whole bunch of stereotypical behavior. They're taking it in. And that's what this girl did. People saying, kill yourself, and she was taking it in. So we do, while I agree with you completely, Cleo, about the fact that both internalize, it manifests itself very differently. And we have to look at that different manifestation in terms of the ways, because black women, there's a connection, Roland, between the first story we had and this one, which is the demonization of black women, the marginalization of black women, the inability to deal with the way that society denigrates black women.
But let's also deal with the race aspect. This was a black girl who had a white friend, and she was being attacked because of that friendship. Corey, then we'll go to the panel.
Yeah, obviously that is a very, very tragic situation in terms of being demonized for that. And I think there are probably people who are black and people who are white who are guilty of making assertions like that, as you were saying at the beginning of the show. And so that's really sad, and I think it also alienates people who might come from a more mixed race background too. And that's something, like both panelists have said, begins at home in terms of that level of education. And if the children who are bullying are acting like that, they need to be educated as to why that's not appropriate.
So we don't know the racial makeup of this school.
Yeah.
We don't know if these were black students who were attacking her because she had a white friend, if it was white students attacking her because she had a white friend. She was friends with this boy, and she would ride with her family to school. Go ahead.
She may have, now, I don't know this, I'm not betting on this, this is a deduction and a projection. She may have had a white friend because of her anti-black perspective. She may have value.
Okay, here's
now, you're speculating.
I just said it.
Right, but here's the piece.
Speculating.
No, here's the piece. Here's the piece.
It happens.
But the one thing is, I don't speculate. I like to operate with a set of facts as we know it and speak to that.
But we can't know.
But we do know this. We know that a 9-year-old girl was bullied and committed suicide.
It was called Black and Ugly.
But by who?
And was so wounded by
other students.
She was so
but we don't know if
wounded.
these are white students or black students.
No, but here's the deal, though.
She was so wounded by it being called Black and Ugly, she killed herself.
And hold on, one second. Hold on.
There might be other factors that weren't reported.
But you know what?
But hold on, one second. The reason I think this is important because we don't know who said it, actually it doesn't matter. I do believe that what has to happen is, to Cleo's point, is that parents do have to arm their children properly, whether their critics are black or white.
I agree with you. Yeah. Indulge me for just a moment, Roland. There is a poem by Warren Cooney. It goes, "She does not know her beauty. She thinks her brown body has no glory. If she could dance naked under palm trees and see her image in the river, she would know. But there are no palm trees on the street, and dishwater gives back no images." This has been the space of black women, that we are very rarely lifted up as beautiful. If you are blonde, if you are white, if you are light, if you have green eyes, you are lifted up as beautiful. If you are just your basic black woman, you are not. And in a society that values beauty, black women, whether you're 9 or 49 or 29, are beaten down and have to have essentially the buttressing of our self-affirmation, and it simply does not often happen. This case of this young girl, of this gorgeous, phenomenal, wannabe scientist young girl, is a tragic case, but you see it replicated with young women who are 19 and other. And so I really, as I said, we take your first case of the young woman who killed her pimp, and then you take it to a 9-year-old, and it really, the continuing thread here is a denigration, devaluation, and fear of black women and our strength, because there would be no America were it not for black women.
Roland, I want to reiterate that whether the people that victimized this young girl were black or white, the insults were anti-black. Let's be real clear. And people agreed that there was an anti-black reason to criticize her, because we live in an anti-black society, and black people internalize those anti-black implications, which is why black parents need to sit down with their children and teach them that this phenomenon is in the landscape, and maybe I'm going to teach you how to recognize this and understand this so you can recognize who you are and deflect this madness, because, baby, it's madness. And the final thing I want to say, I have to say this because I know this is the work I do on a daily basis. Dr. Malvo, everything that you just talked about that black girls go through, including eating in the whole 9 yards, black boys go through the same thing. Including dying in the arms of white folks. So remember the young man in L.A. with the congressman, whatever, I don't know what he was. Remember the young man, the young homosexual?
Jamel. The guy was Buck was a big time. Ed Buck was a big time Democratic fundraiser.
Right, and a young boy died, and basically, seriously, it was kind of like sex trafficking in and of itself.
In his house, that was drug paraphernalia. That's all around.
It's not a pity party.
I'm not going to compare our pain. What I'm
including, not comparing.
No, but I'm saying that we have to look at the genderized aspect of this. Yes, black people are under attack in our society, but when you look at the ways that intersectionality, where race and gender play, you must look at the difference between what happened with this black girl and talk about the way that not just race, but also gender becomes an oppressor.
The court also
and male is a gender too.
And court, we also have to deal with white parents and how their children are also responding to a black girl who is friends with a white student.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 100% true. I grew up, my best friend growing up she had a black father and a white mother. And the first time I really realized racism was a thing was when we probably were no older than 6 or 7, and a woman across the street. I grew up just outside of Boston, which people think it's progressive, but there are also some race issues. I know. Well, in terms of it being a blue state, right?
Right. It's a blue state, but that's a different deal.
So this is the thing. So we've heard this lady was taunting me and my friend. Again, she's half black, half white. She was yelling across the street at this family, "Oh, you guys are the Oreo family," and making like very odd racial comments. And that was when I started to realize, okay, this really is a problem. And if there are white people who are hearing this and don't speak up about it, don't also talk with other people of different races about this and understand that this is happening. And this is something that troubles me. I'm kind of the token right of center person here today. And I will say one thing I have really trouble with some of my fellow conservatives is they say, "Oh, I'm colorblind, race doesn't matter." That's easy for you to say. So I think white people need to be talking about that more. I'm going to keep talking to white conservatives about
Corey,
that.
I have one word for you.
Yeah.
Louise Day Hicks. Do you know who that? You're a little young, but Louise Day Hicks was a white woman who was on the Boston School Board who said she would lay down on the street before she allowed black children to go to white schools in South Boston.
Yeah,
my girl said she would lay down on the street and let the school buses run over. I'm like, right, please, go for it.
All right, gun engine.
Go for it.
All right, y'all, speaking in terms of the impact on also another black woman, here's an update on that appalling video we saw on Monday of the woman having her baby ripped out of her arms in Brooklyn, New York. Police were called after she found herself in a food stamp office. There were no seats. So she was there for 4 hours. She decided to sit on the floor. The security guards called the police, and then this happened. Now, the woman was being held in the New York City jail, the notorious Rikers Island, but a judge ordered her immediate release and all charges were dropped, but she was there for several days. Now she's free and she got out last night, and here's what she said.
I just want to thank everybody.
Could you come up to the mic? Thank you.
And all the support that I've been getting in New York, and just all the great people who's been supporting me. I haven't got to read all of the articles and just all of the great things and all of the love, and I'm accepting it, and I'm just so grateful to everyone. And I'm just happy to be free, and I just need to see my boy. So thank you, guys.
She has also now been reunited with her baby son. Now, here's the question. Would she be out of jail if there was no video?
No. She would be. First of all, this thing, again, I guess, Roland, your theme today is how many different ways can we kick a black woman? But no, she wouldn't be out. If this had not gone viral, so praise the Lord for these, had she not gone viral, she would still be there. The issue is the employee at a social service office who calls a police on a woman because after standing for 4 hours, she decides to sit on the floor.
And literally, that was it. She literally she wasn't yelling and screaming.
Oh, she just sat
She was
down
sitting on the floor.
Because she was tired because her baby boy probably weighed 20 pounds and she's been standing there for I don't know how long. So social service is social disservice. And I saw the congressman, not the congressman, the city councilor from Brooklyn on something, and he talked about the fact that this was ridiculous, but it was ridiculous, and what we've done is demonize people for their poverty. You are poor, you need food stamps, you go to get them. You're patient, you stand in line. That's what you do. You haven't yelled, you haven't screamed, you haven't done anything to anybody except just be black and female and hungry. And so, no, if this had not gone viral, her child would be in the bowels of foster care right now.
Cleo?
I was just writing about how thankful black people should be for the invention of this tool just this morning in something that I wrote for social media, because this society casually dehumanizes black people. I mean, you heard about the young man who was outside of his house celebrating his birthday and was anally raped by the policeman on the city streets. So that was on video as well. And the question goes back to that as well. If that was not on video in that instance, in this instance, of course we would have heard nothing about it. And I have to reiterate that this has been going on for a long time, and there's some people sitting in jail, like somebody we're going to talk about in a moment, for years, who if these existed a long time ago, they would not be sitting in jail. Yeah. So we should be grateful about the existence of this. We also know that there's been some people murdered with this being filmed, and they still didn't get justice.
Corey?
You know, the other quick thing.
Hold on one second. Hold on, Corey.
Oh, no, I agree with what they both said. I agree 100% that the cell phone cameras have made a big difference in terms of how the public gets to see these things. It's really beyond just comprehension that a woman who was standing in an office and then decides to sit has the cops called on her to begin with, and then it erupts into that kind of chaos. It is insane. And I agree with you that she'd probably still be in jail were it not for the video.
Final comment.
When we look at these things, even with these, the police try to make excuses for themselves. We saw this afterwards. This was normal protocol. No, it was not normal protocol. This was inhumane nonsense. And so the thin blue line allows these people, even commissioners of police, to try to make excuses. And that's where we have to stand in the gap. And so, Roland, thank you, and so many others have stood in the gap to say, this ain't happening.
Well, also, I'm telling you, it's getting to the point we talk about body cameras for cops. Hell, black people gonna need to wear body cameras. Like literally wearing a camera anytime you go out in public because you can't count on somebody else actually having their camera. All right, folks, let's talk about somebody white in trouble. Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's attorney. See, you ain't gonna
switch it up. Huh?
You ain't gonna hear that on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. Michael Cohen was sentenced today to 3 years in prison. Of course, he had tons of jobs. He was Donald Trump's personal lawyer and fixer. He was executive vice president of the Trump Organization, the deputy finance chair of the Republican National Committee. And before he was sentenced, he said this, as quoted in the New York Times: "I blame myself for the conduct which has brought me here today. And it was my own weakness and a blind loyalty to this man," a reference to the orange one, "that led me to choose a path of darkness over light." Cohen said the president had been correct to call him weak recently, quote, "but for a much different reason than he was implying. It was because time and time again I felt it was my duty to cover up his dirty deeds rather than to listen to my own inner voice and my moral compass." Oh, but it gets worse for the Donald. Federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York announced today they had reached an agreement with the parent company of the National Enquirer, you know, that trash newspaper. National Enquirer, they bought and then buried the story of Donald Trump's alleged affair with Playboy model Karen McDougal. Now, the prosecutors said that the National Enquirer admitted they did that in order to aid Donald Trump's campaign and to have an impact on the election. Corey, Donald Trump keeps saying, I'm good, I'm in the clear. It ain't a good thing for your attorney to be convicted, to go to prison, who is still cooperating. For the National Enquirer to admit they were colluding with the campaign to bury this story and to pay off the actual, so the Enquirer paid the money, but then they would reimburse, I guess, whatever from Trump and his people.
Yeah.
Ain't a good day for the MAGA fans.
No, it is not. Donald Trump, he keeps moving the goalposts on this and other issues. One day he'll say, I did nothing wrong. The next day, he or Rudy Giuliani will say, well, it doesn't matter if he did anything wrong. It's just a mess. I was telling the co-panelists here when we were sitting in the green room before, I'm a former Republican, and all this just nonsense.
Recovery?
In recovery, that's one way of putting it. I'm in rehab. I mean,
what program?
I need a 12-step program because this gets more insane and more insane by the day. And I wish that, and there have been polls that show that Republicans still support Trump. Again, a lot of people like me have left the Republican Party, so keep that in mind when you see those polls. But people need to stop hitching their star to this guy's wagon. He's never even been a conservative or a Republican, and everyone is just selling out to him. All these cowards on Capitol Hill, the media asks them, hey, what do you think about this and that? And all the Republicans scurry away while in private
goes, I don't care.
Hold on, I can tell you as the former communications director for a Republican member of Congress, I can tell you what these guys say in private and what they say to press are two totally different things, and it's all going to come crashing down for them at some point, and I feel like we're getting there.
To have Giuliani, again, you see Trump, and like today, he basically didn't come to work until about 3 o'clock. Sat in the residence, watched television the whole time. And he's tweeting, and he's sitting here blasting this guy. And bottom line is, this is a dude who literally, I mean, we now have clear and undeniable evidence of the National Enquirer admitting, yes, we did this to impact the election, to hide this story, to pay her off, to bury the story, and we did it in collusion with the Donald Trump campaign.
Family values.
And now you have Michael Cohen, who was setting up meetings with the Russians, who has given that evidence to Mueller. And it's just, and that's what I kept telling everybody. Y'all, Watergate took 900 days. Okay, it was 900 days from the beginning of the break-in to Richard Nixon resigning. I kept telling everybody, I'm like, so stop acting, and Mueller was going to get this thing done in 3 months. This thing has been a slow build, and he's just been chipping away and chipping away. It's like mobsters. When you get, the two people mobsters never want captured. The attorney and their accountant. When you get the attorney and the accountant, your ass is in trouble.
Well, no, the three-legged stool is also the wife. So, maybe somebody needs to light a fire into Melania. Just saying. But in any case, the fact, Roland, as we know, the walls are crumbling down, the walls are falling down. And Corey, I'm happy to hear your point because this is what these people have brokered to get the courts. They have brokered their integrity to get the courts. And that's really what it is. There are I know Republicans. I mean, not many.
Not just the courts. My house. That is the courts. No. You got to go beyond that. It's the courts. They wanted the tax cut. And this is about power. This is not about. No. The courts is a huge piece of it. But remember, the evangelicals are all about. Remember, the Republican Party is separating into like 3 distinct categories. You got the evangelical folks, all about the courts. You got the fiscal people, who's all about tax policy.
It's all about the courts for everyone. It's all about the courts for everyone. I can promise you that.
Tax policy can be changed. All those tax cuts, that can be changed. Right. The Democrats now have the House, which means they have the revenue arm. But the courts I think has been their big thing. And the evangelicals with the abortion stuff, that's been their big thing. And the fact is that these people, like I said, I don't let them in my house, but I do know Republicans. If they come in stealth. But anyway, when off the record, they talk about how horrible this man is, how wrong he is. They can talk about indicting him, but they are happy that they have Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, which means that there was a punt last week.
But not just those two. Again, it goes beyond. It goes to the appellate courts. It goes to the federal judges.
Please, they got 90 judges.
But also, it also goes into those who are in power on Capitol Hill. Cleo, again, as every time the best person for Donald Trump in terms of to nail him to the wall is Donald Trump. He literally runs his mouth so much because he goes, I didn't know. Okay, I did know, but I didn't know. All right, I did know, but I didn't tell him.
But it's criminal.
Okay, I did know, I did tell him, but I really didn't know. My man, it's like every time you talk, it's a changing story.
But see, nothing that comes out again and again about Donald Trump is shocking to anybody who's been paying attention since we've known of his existence.
Well, no, a lot of us, it's not shocking, but for those who were ardent supporters, it's chipping away at his wall. He's losing support. He's losing support in suburbs, among educated white voters. Like, literally, the last remaining group for Donald Trump is going to be non-college white men. That's his last group.
Pardon me for being cynical, but I'll believe it when I see it. Like I said, when we talked about what happened in Florida and Georgia, sometimes white people say stuff publicly because they don't want the association, so they do rhetorical disassociation.
I got it.
And then vote for white power behind the curtain.
But here's the piece. But here's the piece, though. They lost seats in North Carolina. They got totally wiped out in California. Okay, they lost seats in Texas. All right, so it's not like Donald Trump supporters didn't lose. No, they lost 40 seats in the House. All those places, I mean, Pete Sessions in Texas, in Dallas area, got beat by a black dude. Okay? I'm just trying to let you know, in the Dallas area, that ain't easy.
I'm real clear about that.
So I'm just saying that.
I want to see what happens when the dust clears.
Oh, no. Well, first of all, the question then becomes what happens in 2020. Does he get indicted? Does he get impeached? Is he thrown out? The question, what happens then? And will people still turn? But what I'm saying is, what is happening? He is seeing an erosion of support. The question is, will they take that erosion of support in polls? Will it transcend to not voting for him in 2020?
Exactly.
That's the only question. But again,
go ahead. That they say one thing publicly and they say another thing in the rooms that she's been in.
Go ahead.
They do. I mean, but also, like, pretty much all politicians do that, depending on the issue. But as it pertains to Donald Trump and a lot of Republicans, not all, but a lot, that is the case. That being said, we were talking about how Watergate took a long time. We do not know what is going to happen between now and 2020. We could find that this whole Russia thing, really, there's not much to it. That's possible. I don't think we know. This campaign finance thing, we just don't know yet.
Corey,
we don't know yet.
Friend, wake up and smell the coffee.
Look, I don't like Donald Trump. I would love to see him being taken down.
We don't know.
We don't know all the details.
We don't know what the finale will be, but what we do know is what we're seeing right now.
But that will affect 2020, though. My point is with Republicans, if we keep the status quo of, like, no one really knows for sure, I don't think the support will get totally eroded, but it could be that everything blows up in 2020 and Republicans...
Hold on.
If Democrats have the white person, they could wipe him out. The question is who the white person.
Here's the piece. We gonna know, but all I'm saying is, while we getting there, some folks keep going to jail. All right, folks, time to go to a break. One of our partners here, of course. We want you to write this website down, marijuanastock.org, marijuanastock.org. And so here's why. As we transition into the holiday season, this is the time, of course, when we start thinking about giving and sharing. And sometimes the best gift can be something you give someone, which is an opportunity that can potentially change their lives. That's why our friends at Transatlantic Real Estate have created an investment opportunity for the everyday investor. It involves legal marijuana and crowdfunding. And we all know that legal marijuana has created one of the fastest growing industries in the nation, a multi-billion-dollar industry. We also know that crowdfunding makes it easier to be an early investor of an opportunity, but it gets easier. Transatlantic Real Estate is different. They have a business model that is simple to understand. What they're going to do is they buy land that supports marijuana grow operations and lease it to licensed high-paying tenants. Now, what that means is you're investing in the landlord of a licensed marijuana farm in a high-growth market. Now, you can invest little as $300 up to $10,000 before the company goes public. And here's the piece. They have recently extended the offer, which means you still have time if you take action now. Now, keep in mind, you must complete and confirm your application to participate, so be sure to complete the process. And look, don't spend all of your money over the holidays and end up with empty pockets. Instead, get a return on your investment. You can also consider making this an investment for someone special. To get started, go to marijuanastock.org. Marijuanastock.org. If you want to get in the game, you can do it now. All right, folks, here's another story that is pretty crazy. At 18 years old, Elmer Daniels was tried, convicted, and sentenced to life in prison for a rape he says he didn't commit. It was an all-white judge, all-white jury, He is now 56 years old and has been in jail for 39 years. His attorney appealed his conviction based on flawed testimony that he says proves his client was wrongfully convicted. Attorney Emeka Igwegwe joins me now to give us the status of this case. Emeka, how you doing?
Hi, Roland. How you doing?
So he's saying, I didn't do it. He's been in jail for 39 years. What are you presenting to show that he did not commit this crime?
Well, first of all, Roland, had me on your show. Your viewers should know that at the age of 18, my client, Elmer, was given a life sentence for a crime he didn't commit. It's important to know that he's not getting off on a technicality. He's getting out because he's actually innocent. He had a strong alibi at the time of trial. We know that the state's key witness, a 15-year-old, lied on several occasions, and only when that witness was threatened with being charged with the rape because he himself was a suspect, did he finally mention the name of my client, Elmer. We obtained transcripts of our client that show that he was not in the same math class as the state's key witness, contrary to what he told the police. He said he knew that it was the rape because they were in the same 8th grade math class together. Now, you would think the prosecuting attorney would obtain the transcripts of my client, or his defense attorney would have obtained the transcripts as well, too. Unfortunately, neither one of them did, and Haslam was convicted. We know from the statements of the witness of the rape victim that my client did not match the description. She said my client had a broad nose, and my client has a narrow nose. She said my client had bitten fingernails all the way to the cuticles, and a court-appointed psychiatrist who looked and examined Mr. Daniels was prepared to testify to the judge that my client's fingernails had never been habitually bitten. So I'm just giving you a small example of all the evidence that didn't come out on trial that proves my client was, in fact, actually innocent.
And so you said you also have some very important news you wanted to share. What is that?
Well, today, after 39 years in prison, my client's birthday is today, and I'm pleased to announce to your viewers that the judge signed the order to dismiss the indictment against Mr. Daniels.
We're breaking up. Go ahead.
We've been
Okay, actually, hold tight 1 second.
48 hours.
Hold tight 1 second. Hold tight 1 second. I'm gonna do this. Hold tight 1 second, guys. Take him off Skype. Call him on the phone. I want to get a clear connection so I can be sure to hear correctly. So please take him off Skype. Put him on the phone so I can get a better understanding of what he's saying. And so let me roll back the details of that. Okay, so we were talking about again this man who was convicted, 18 years old, Elmer Daniels. He's now 56 years old. He's been in jail for 39 years. And his attorney, Emeka, was just saying that the judge in the case has signed the order to actually vacate the conviction. And so when we get him on the phone, we want to be sure that we can hear him. So guys, let me know how fast we can go ahead and get that done. And so again, his attorney appealed the conviction based upon the flawed testimony that he says proves his client was wrongfully convicted. And so he is saying that the judge has actually done that. And so I want to get him back on the phone so we can finish hearing exactly that judge's decision. So we'll go ahead and wait for this.
Yeah.
All right. Are you there?
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, gotcha. So you said that the judge in the case signed the order today. What that took place? What time today? And go ahead.
That's correct, Roland. So today, on his 57th birthday, the judge signed the order to dismiss the indictment against Mr. Daniels. And within the next 48 hours, Mr. Daniels, after being in jail for 39 years for a crime he did not commit, is going to be released within the next 48 hours. So what a birthday present. On his 57th birthday, he gets the news that the judge has agreed to dismiss the indictment against him.
First of all, where did this take
and overturn his conviction.
Where did this take place?
This took place in the state of Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware, to be more specific.
And so with the judge signing this order, will he be released? And when will that? So explain that process.
So the background was we've been working on this case for over 2.5 years, and the state of Delaware has resisted our efforts throughout the course of this last 2.5 years. When we finally presented them with evidence, and the key piece of evidence was when we got the transcripts, we noticed that there was a special agent from the FBI named Michael P. Malone. And Michael P. Malone was a hair forensic expert of the FBI who went around the whole country, testified in thousands of cases throughout the country, that he could, by examining hair, determine who the hair belonged to. So in Mr. Daniels' case, he testified to the jury falsely, as it would turn out, that hair found on the victim's underwear belonged to my client, Elmer Daniels, and hair found on pants belonging to Mr. Daniels belonged to the victim. And when we got involved, we requested that the FBI and the United States Department of Justice review the transcripts of Mr. Daniel, specifically regarding Special Agent Malone's testimony. When they conducted that review, they wrote back to the Attorney General of Delaware that they admit in this particular case, this agent testified falsely. And as a result, they requested that the Delaware Department of Justice consider dismissing or consider reviewing this case in light of the false testimony. And despite us presenting that to them and other discrepancies in this case, the Delaware Department of Justice refused to release Mr. Daniels. They, in light of the discrepancies, they offered us a commutation, which means Mr. Daniels' sentence would have been lessened, and he would have come out of jail, but he would still have been a convicted sex offender and would have had to register as a convicted sex offender under Megan's Law. We refused because my client is innocent. They then offered a pardon to support a pardon application to the governor, and once again, my client refused because he's maintained his innocence for 39 years. So finally, when we gave them the transcripts that showed their key witness lied by stating that he recognized it was my client who committed the rape because they were in the same 8th grade math class together, that was the final straw that where the state of Delaware realized they had no choice, and they're the ones that filed the motion to dismiss the indictment against my client and to overturn his conviction. We, of course, filed a response saying that we concur that the indictment should be dismissed. And the final thing that needed to occurred today when the judge signed off on the order dismissing the indictment against Mr. Daniels and overturning his conviction.
So when is he going to be out?
That's the million-dollar question. We expect Mr. Daniels to be released within the next 48 hours. The prison needs to process his paperwork. But within the next 48 hours, Mr. Daniels, for the first time in 39 long years, will be able to walk the street without the stigma of being a convicted sex offender. He'll be able to celebrate Christmas with his mother, who is still alive. She's in the 80s, and his mother has waited for 39 years to celebrate Christmas with her son.
We'll love for this, Emeka, when he is released. We'd love to have both of you back on the show to talk to him about his fight for freedom and how he never gave up on his innocence.
We would love to, Roland. Thank you for the opportunity to tell your audience about this case.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Quickly, I want to go to our panel. We saw in Texas when Craig Watkins was the first black elected DA in Texas, how he created this division to retest a bunch of different cases of DNA, and probably more than 30 people actually have been released, and they've actually made that as a mainstay in that office. We've seen other progressive DAs do this. The worst thing in the world, I think, is when you have prosecutors who refuse, in their quest to believe they're never wrong, how they will stand by wrongful convictions because they don't want to say we screwed up. And the biggest problem for me is that you don't have the kind of backlash against prosecutors who withhold evidence, who lie, who knowingly will allow cops or other witnesses to lie, and nothing happens to their careers. And that's just one of those things that I think if you're a prosecutor, not only should you no longer be a prosecutor, you should lose your law license if you had a part in somebody going to prison and who didn't do it. Corey.
Well, I will say this type of case, and I'm so glad to hear Mr. Daniels is getting out, but this type of case is actually why my opinion on the death penalty changed. I used to be pro-death penalty because I think from an emotional standpoint, it's easy to say when you know for sure someone has done something, okay, you want that retribution. However, this is so common. You mentioned the situation in Texas where they retest, and I think that should be implemented.
And many of them were on death row.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point, is that as someone who is generally skeptical of government power, and especially as it pertains to marginalized communities, people who can't afford a good lawyer, people who, quite frankly, are in a system where the public defenders might be more, in line with the prosecutors. You see this all the time with inadequate, representation for people. So I would say we need to keep doing more of this as a society. I think it's very important for these cases to be publicized and brought to light so people understand how critical it is to look at all the evidence anew and for people to look at these cases from 39 years ago. It's crazy. So I say no death penalty and let's look at these cases.
I agree, and I support the testing that you raised, Roland. I'm sure you're familiar with Barry Scheck's Innocence Project.
Yep.
And how that project, through DNA, has released lots of people, particularly black men, in
Yep.
rows who have been found to be not even at the scene. There's no forensic evidence. And because they were black, they were easy to convict. One of the things that's easier than melting water or ice and sun is convicting somebody black of a crime. And I'm glad that these situations are bringing themselves forth because this is a biased society when it comes to law enforcement. And here we go again. But in Daniel's case, Mr. Daniel's case, he was released, and that feels good.
Roland, I chair the board of Push Excel, which is Reverend Jackson's educational arm. We've got a staffer in Chicago, Johnny Savory, who was convicted at age 14 of a rape that he did not commit. His mother maintained his pace at the dinner table for over 30 years, had his plate sitting there for over 30 years. And so I'm relating to this case, thinking about how important the family support is, how important that family faith is. I mean, Johnny didn't do it. They finally figured out that he didn't do it, and he was let out. But this man was in jail for more than 30 years for something he did not do, that he was convicted
39 years
at age 14. So this man is the same kind of thing.
Right.
And so props to his mom and props to his community, because we know that without that community support, these brothers and sisters, we have sisters who are wrongfully convicted as well, they lose faith.
Yep.
And losing faith causes them to do a certain kind of acting out inside the system.
But also, he could have gotten the sentence reduced. But he said, I did not do this.
Precisely.
He was willing to stay in prison.
He refused to admit to something that he did not do.
Yep.
And I think that's very pivotal and very critical.
Yep.
And what we know is that this just keeps happening to black people. And you're right. They should lose their licenses. I mean, they should be put up under jail. You got somebody who's been in jail for 39 years because of your BS? Look at the Central Park Five. Those DAs still do not admit
and are still defending it. And are still defending it. And one of them is a law professor, I think at Columbia or one of those schools. I don't know how in the hell. I don't know how in the hell.
Y'all's president of the United States.
I don't know how in the hell. I don't know how in the hell she teaching anybody. All right, y'all. So you know what? So here, this is a regular feature on our show. This is a regular feature on our show, and we call them crazy ass white people. He's the first crazy-ass white man. Tennessee nurse, yes, Corey, it's called crazy-ass white people.
It's fine, there's plenty
of Tennessee nurse was racially profiled by a sheriff's deputy while trying to care for a white patient. Y'all, Stephanie Dash, a home health nurse, was questioned after entering her patient's home last week. The deputy peeked through the window when Dash arrived, knocked on the door to question her. Now, the white patient explained to the deputy that Dash was her nurse, but the deputy told the patient that she had received a call about a suspicious person in the area. Now, the deputy, identified as Rhonda Casillas, wasn't convinced, so Dash went out to her car to show the deputy her ID badge for the hospital she works with, as well as her nursing equipment. Dash even went further and called her employer to verify that she was indeed working there. But Casillas wasn't satisfied and waited outside of the patient's home until Dash left. Dash, as well as her employer, has filed a report against the Sheriff's Department. And the Sheriff's Department says they're investigating the incident while the deputy remains on patrol. How in the hell is the deputy still even patrolling?
What she should be patrolling is the jail cell that she walks around. That's what she needs to be patrolling. I mean, but again.
But you asked her a question.
Crazy
why is she
white
still
women.
patrolling? Because she has system support. White supremacy system support.
That's crazy.
Innocent until proven innocent.
The patient's like, yo, that's my nurse.
And I need my
I got an ID.
What more do you need?
But nobody's listening.
What more do you need?
You're black and you're
I don't know what more do you need.
No, it's all this. It's like, oh no, you black? No, they ain't you. They ain't you. All right, y'all. Crazy white woman. Y'all remember Pool Patrol Paula, the South Carolina woman who hit a black teenager and then kicked him out of a pool in June? Just in case y'all forgot, press play.
Get out! Get out! Get out now! There's 3 numbers I could dial. 911. Okay?
Yeah, right.
Get out. Little punks.
Where y'all Pool Patrol Paula, better known as Stephanie Strimple, pled guilty Monday to assault and battery for hitting the teenager. She now must pay a $1,000 fine. Of course, you wasn't too happy that video was playing.
Good Lord, why do people act like that?
Is that a rhetorical? Is that a rhetorical question?
I mean, I know.
You're the whiteologist on the panel.
I know.
Is that a rhetorical question?
It's a rhetorical question. It's me expressing my frustration at the fact that people do act like that.
So all she gets is a $1,000 fine. Like she don't get 30 days in jail.
Right.
She gets no can to whoop. You know what?
Yeah.
She can't spend like 20 minutes with me.
Okay.
20 minutes.
20 minutes? Is that enough time?
All right, y'all.
Well, this is another case where it wasn't for video, y'all.
Same thing.
If it wasn't for this, she would have got away with it, and we had an assaulted child who might have considered suicide because when white people hit you, it's like God hit you because they're better than everybody.
Or the child would have been incarcerated or something would have happened to the child. 20 minutes, Corey. Just 20
All right, y'all. Okay, I'm actually over time, but I'm going to go ahead and play this here so you know. Y'all know. First of all, Fox News won't call me. I wonder why. I don't know why. Come on. They call everybody. They call other people. I got all these black people who come on my show. They call them. They'll never seem to call me.
They don't call me either, Roland.
They don't. But just like, come on now. Y'all know brothers now. But check this out. So yesterday, Juan Williams was on the 5, and then y'all know Jesse Waters. Y'all know, Mr. Family Values. You remember he's the one who was married. Then he was cheating a side piece at Fox News, and he was cheating on his wife with the side piece. But he Mr. Family Values, and y'all know Donald Trump just love him to Jesse Waters too. I guess they got them side pieces in common. All right, so they were on the show, and then this went down.
Says there are diseases down there with the caravan.
That's ridiculous.
I'm not demonizing it, Juan. That's just a fact.
I tell you what, we're not spreading disease. We're spreading falsehoods.
But
right
you look it up on Google, people.
The bigger one
Google
is
it.
the drugs that you often cite. And again, he says drugs are coming through that southern border. And everybody says, no, in fact, most drugs come through legal ports of entry.
Well, you would know, Juan, because you sound like you're high right now.
Yeah, right.
But this always comes down to the bottom line, process versus chaos. Yeah. And so.
Did he just say?
Let me help y'all out. First of all, Juan is nice. Okay, if Jesse Waters had actually told me, it sounded like I was high. Have y'all actually heard some of the crazy stuff that come out Jesse Waters' mouth? I mean, that means he must be on meth and crack at the same time. All right, this is the same guy who wants to sit here and bust the joints and sit here and, roll up on people, with the camera and the microphone. See, Juan, you just can't just drop your head. Look, I understand, I understand you on it. I know you on there. You're the only brother on the show.
And wants to keep his game.
But I'm letting you know right now, sometime you got to put Jesse in check. And see, what should have happened right there was, Jesse, let's see what's in your briefcase. Because, see, some of the stuff you say on this show is absolutely crazy and outlandish. But this is all I want. This is all I want. Let me go ahead and give y'all my Christmas list. This is my Christmas list. I just want one invitation to Jesse's show. Just give me one.
All I want, Roland.
I ain't done. I just want one invitation to Sean Hannity's show. Y'all know he running from me. Y'all know he's scared. Matter of fact, I've met him a couple times and he's scared. He won't invite me to his radio show. Perfect. He blocked me on Twitter. I guess he can't handle that funk. Okay, Laura Ingraham. Y'all saw she had Ann Coulter on last night, and she made this crazy comment about the blacks and black ladies and black church ladies and queer folks at the church. Yeah, she just lost her mind. She just truly lost her mind. Laura Ingraham, why won't you call her brother? And Tucker Carlson. You keep having these conversations about white men and demographic changes in America, but you keep you invite Wendell Sefo, you got Monique Presley on the show, you got A. Scott Bolden on the show, you got all them. Tucker, go ahead and call her brother. That's all I'm saying. Call this brother. See, this is a different brother. See, I'm different. Now again, I know how y'all roll, and so I would appreciate it if Fox, y'all say y'all fair and balanced. Y'all say y'all want to have great debates. All I'm saying is, all I want for Christmas is for y'all to call a brother. Because see, I think a lot of y'all scared. I think y'all actually scared to call a brother like me. Because I think y'all scared y'all white viewers may go, damn, he making sense. It's like Lou Dobbs. Lou, you used to call me at CNN until your ass had a lobotomy and then you went to Fox Business. Now you done lost your damn mind because I don't know what the hell you saying half the time. And so, Lou, matter of fact, Lou, you same way, you blocked me on Twitter. I don't know what's up with you. I don't know what's up. And remember Eric Bowling? That fool, he blocked me on Twitter as well. And so, matter of fact, Abby Huntsman, when she was at Fox, she got mad because I criticized her a couple times, and then she blocked me, but now she on The View, and then they go get a talent coach, go get her a talent coach because she boring as hell. All I'm saying is this here. Fox News, y'all can call a brother. I won't bite. I promise. Matter of fact, I will go on y'all show and y'all can tie my hands behind my back to debate. Then it probably still gonna be a little unfair. That's probably why y'all not gonna call anybody. But please, don't try to tell Juan Williams he high, because Jesse, we know you high. Say what up to the side piece. All right, y'all. It's been a great day. We certainly want you to support Roland Martin Unfiltered. Go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com to join our Bring the Funk fan club. We want you, of course, every dollar go to support our show as well. And so we want you to do that. Do we have the video of all our fan club members, y'all? Okay, cool. So I'm going to say bye right now. And so what you're about to see the video of all the people who've actually joined our fan club. We want you to be on this list. We're going to run this twice a week. And so if you don't contribute, your name will not be on here. So become a charter member of the Roland Martin Unfiltered Bring the Funk fan club. We appreciate it. Thank you so very much. See, that wasn't too bad your first time on the show. No. See, you didn't come on talking crazy.
This is the thing. I mean, I am conservative, but I happen to agree on these issues.
Right. So we're going to have you back. We're going to have you back when you don't agree.
Yeah, bring me on to debate fiscal issues.
Yeah, no, all right. Don't ask for some stuff, you might get it.
That's fine.
So it's all good though. So we'll have you back, Corey, Cleo. Thanks a bunch. That's Super Black. We appreciate it. And Julian Malvo, thanks a bunch as well, folks. I will see y'all guys tomorrow on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Here's all of our fan club members. Holla!
Martin!